Why, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your hosting guy, Zollin Ironshield, and this is a LOTRO update. And today I want to talk about something very near and dear to my heart. It has a lot to do with the Red Guardian, and a couple other classes, and a few other things coming out that is exciting with the 12-man raid. But we're going to be talking about the notes that were given to us for Borora Update 47 that is coming soon. So this is subject to change, okay? But I'm going to go through it because they gave us a ton of stuff about the Red Guard that I want to talk about. Because again, it's kind of near and dear to my heart. This is something I really know about. I've made a lot of Red Guard videos on DPS guards, and they really struggle still with stuff. And what they're trying to do right now, which I really appreciate from the devs, is they're trying to make them a very viable class to do DPS as well. They're amazing tanks. We love their tanking. Don't need to touch their tanking. Everybody knows the Guardians are good tanks. That's not the issue here. The thing we're talking about today is the Red Guard. All right, so that is what we're doing in this video. Welcome. I am your hosting guide, Zollin Ironshield, here on Voice of the Rings, like I just said. And also, little side note, they did one little update for the Red Runekeeper. The Red Runekeeper really could use some help with updates with damage. After they changed a little thing with the whole server not having the little delay system where you can input, where the Runekeeper could like double cast with that one ability. When they removed that from the whole game and everybody, it kind of really hurt the red DPSs. They didn't really bump their damage up to make up for that fact, because I think that it had been balanced on that in the past, knowing that it could be a thing. I don't know that for sure, but that's what it seemed like, because why else would they have not given them more damage to balance it out, right? Because their damage was about the same as other tactical classes that are high damage for bosses. So, little side note there with the Red Runekeeper. Really think they could use some buffs. I know my one officer, leader, commander, he is a little bit bummed about that, and a couple other my players who play Red Runekeepers. So, it's their damage is really down right now, unfortunately. It's not as bad as the Red Guard, but it's still, yeah. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this and get into it, all right? So, again, this is very near and dear to my heart. I really like the Red Guardian. I think it's really fun to play. It's super fun solo landscape, but if we get to the brass tacks of things, they're just not super great at being a main DPS within a raid or a high tier instance, doing something higher tier. Now, are there people out there who do it? Yes, there are. But are there a lot of them? No, there's not. I mean, there's myself and probably maybe 5 to 10 other people on the server that do it. Okay? So we're talking about not a lot of people who viably do this all the time. They've done already a bunch of changes in update 6.1, right? 46.1. This will be 47. This is the upcoming. So this will be in the future. When you're seeing this video, we have several weeks ahead. So if you want to get in on the discussions and join the forums and talk with them, awesome. All right, go for it. You know, leave the comments here. I try to be a voice for my community or the LOTRO community in general, or my kinship or whatever, you know, here on the channel. And I try to give my 2 cents on it as well. So again, this is me also making this video. So if the devs want to check it out, they can see what I think as a Red Guard main for 18 years. I mean, I tank mostly, but I want to DPS with the Red Guard, right? In raids or in an instance, all right? I want to be able to viably take it with not oh, but we could take this person instead, or this class. You have 3 other classes, Zollin. You don't have to bring a Red Guard as DPS. It's but I want to be a Red Guard DPS. That's the point. It's fun. So it'd be nice if the numbers were viable, right? Now, I've talked about this in my guide videos in the past, but the Red Guardian, one of the things that it hurts itself the most of almost any class is that if you don't do the skills in the right orders and you use certain skills you probably shouldn't use down here while you're DPSing for the maximum level of DPS, if we're really trying to mid-max, be really silly about our numbers, right? The game is supposed to be a fun game. This isn't we're talking about really high tier play that you're trying to do as much damage as possible, okay? This is not something that the majority of the game needs. But for us who are trying to do raids and we're trying to get into the longer stuff, it would be fun to have it where the guard could be a little bit more intuitive with red, that you don't have to put in the effort to know exactly what skills to use and not to use, and if you literally misclick one skill, it's going to hurt your damage per second, your TPS, or any damage, right? And one thing, again, when you're DPSing a single target, a boss, you do not want to be using Vexing Blow. You rarely want to use Sweeping Cut, occasionally. Getting Sting in there is easy because it's a fast induction. It's an animation cancellation, as I like to call it. But those things are really easy, and then you're trying to do certain combos of your skills and all this stuff. Now, recently, they've updated the guard. They've updated the guard where we no longer have a instant crit on our virtuous charge, which kind of hurt the rotation that I always used. But there were other things they made better, like the bleed automatically goes on from overwhelm now, so you don't have to do this like 3 levels of doing your parry responses over and over. I'm assuming you have some knowledge of the Red Guardian in this video, otherwise we'd be doing a 40-minute talking about how to do the Red Guard. So I want to get into the notes. I want to talk about the changes, okay? I don't like to take more than about, we're already at 5 minutes. So they also want, this is important for you to know though, the protection by the sword now gives 5 parry and partial parry to your target, which is fantastic. But if you're parry an attack, the Guardian protects will be able to react. And it says will automatically get 100% crit. This is really cool. I really like this. I've barely even tried this yet. Now the problem with this is that you cannot properly test your DPS like on a single target dummy, and you have to be in a very specific situation. You have to be in an instance or a raid because you need a tank who is blocking or parrying all the time, right? And then you're getting crits all the time. So if there's really no cooldown to this, which again I haven't even really been able to test it very much, it just came out like 2 days ago. Cool, that's pretty cool. Now, personally, I liked the dedicated crit on the charge ability. I thought it made it a little more consistent. It let me crit when I wanted to with certain abilities, and when I procced my like hammer down to catch out bleeds, it let them all crit. I liked it better in that way. But I haven't really tested it yet, so I don't know. But keep that in mind, because we're going to go to the notes, and you need to remember this for a reason in a second. Okay, that's why I brought that up. So let's go ahead and get through the notes, and I'll try to make this as least boring as possible. We'll do this very quickly. For those people who really care about the Red Guard or a couple other updates, first things we're going to get is we're going to get a big 12-player raid coming out soon, which will be pretty cool. The Kingdom's Harad stands at a crossroads. Their rivalry sharpening as greater threats gather strength. Gandalf has come with a warning of a darkness rising in the south. The Tharduth, the ancient servants of Morgoth, rise once more, harnessing powers that could unmake the balance of Middle-earth. All right? And then we got the folly of Nakelgl. Oh gosh, I don't know. Should have read this before I did the video. Neget Kedi. Whatever. 12-player raid. For over 100 years, the Kinte elves have battled a mysterious blight, seemingly brought on by the Din of Stone, which was a big natural disaster that was caused by evil, we now know, blah, blah, blah. It has already consumed once beautiful Adigim, and now threatens the rest of the elven glades. An investigation by the Rangers, Ferron and Redrog, have tracked the source of the blight, the folly of Nakak Kedi, the name. But the dangerers lurk inside the ancient and abandoned wonder. Alright, so that's going to be our new raid coming out. We know nothing about it yet, but that's going to be coming out on the test server. Okay, so I'm making this video way ahead. This is not even coming out on the test servers yet. This is just a little bit of info. And this is why some of this was cool and some of this was startling for me, all right? And I wanted to make this video, again, for the devs to watch this, or for you guys to watch this, or you guys to get in on the conversation, because I think this is important info, and it's kind of hard to always know what's going on. I think they're starting to post this on the main official Discord, which Cordova made a comment about that, so awesome, because I think that's a good way to get more people in on the discussion and having talks on it, because not everybody uses the forums, right? It's just the people that are, content creators or real dedicated players who do that and go on to the forums, right? You can all join the forums. It's open to any player. You have to apply and connect, and it's not too bad. It's on the main LOTRO.com if you want to do it. On note, the folly of Nakageti, 12 players available. Okay, good. And then here are some updates that they're going to be testing. So these, please keep in mind, these are testing updates. But a lot of these usually come through and you get updated. So the Bjorning's Blue Line version, and I'm going to try to break it down for players who maybe don't understand what all this is, okay? We're especially going to focus on the Red Guard because, as you can see, that's the majority of this, okay? The Bjorning, the Blue Line version of the Furious Roar, will now properly restore the Rattling Roar deed. Okay, so just some basic little update there, nothing huge. Brawlers Come At Me now correctly taunts for 5 seconds. That must have been a little bit of a glitch. It's a fix. Burglar Clever Retort builders now have a diminishing return. That seems a little bit like a nerf, but maybe it wasn't intentional originally, so I'm a little wary to always say nerf unless I knew. I'm sure my yellow burglar mains out there can tell me what was really going on there. Champions, Emboldened Blade at tier 5 will now cause Remorseless Strike to hit multiple targets. That is really cool. Remorseless Strike is one of their big attacks, and I believe Emboldened Blades is one of their things in the trait tree. So when they put all 5 tiers in it, it will let it hit multiple targets. I believe that's what's going on with that one off the top of my head. All right, Guardians. I'm going to jump to the Runekeeper real quick because we have a really quick Runekeeper update. The trait Scathing Retort, again, in the trait. You know what? Actually, Emboldened Blades doesn't say it's a trait. Maybe that's just a stacking ability that I'm just not remembering because I don't play. That champion's one of my least played classes. The trait Scathing Retort now causes Smoldering Wrath to burn faster, tear down, Rite of Fire to deal bonus damage. Okay, so interesting. This is a buff for the Runekeeper because this is what the Runekeeper, okay, used to get on their set bonus for the gear. Now, something I want to throw out there right now for the devs, if they hear this, if you guys hear this, we really liked the set bonuses. That was really cool. So I hope that when the raids come out and the gold gear comes out, that the set bonuses will be a thing again. I'm noticing they're putting a few of these things into the classes, which is good because I think the classes needed the help, like the champion and the Runekeeper, and it helped balance them and make them good. But there are some things that were so cool, like just for example, the Guardian. I absolutely loved the ability where when your Guardian's Pledge was up, your shield skills would heal you a little bit, and when it was on cooldown, your shield skills would reduce its cooldown. That was so cool. I also loved that bolstering stack also increased your max morale with the armor. That was just the coolest thing. I love the Lore Masters, the other one, the lightning pole, where you do the drain and then it would shoot lightning bolts on everything around your target. That was just absolutely so cool. It really just it made it feel rewarding to get the raid gear. I know it's always rewarding to get the raid gear for stats, but to have a skill that actually does something drastically different because you have the gear is a really cool, rewarding way to get gear. And I think that was probably one of the best things the devs, you guys have done with like endgame content in years. So I think it would be a really huge shame if you just like dropped it and doing 160. So I really recommend you guys, even if you move over some of the same abilities and the ones that people didn't like that were kind of generic. I know some other classes are a little generic with their abilities. You change those up, make them a little different, make them a little more like an active ability that does something cool, right? I also love the Runekeeper's thing where it made Epic for the Ages cast faster. Your bolster would stack up a little thing, bolsters. That was really cool too. There was a lot of really cool stuff with that gear. So as much as I understand putting it into the classes, like you did with the champion here with the Runekeeper, I do recommend that you do something else for their gear to make their gear cool. Maybe it will still drop the runestone and do extra damage. That's what the ability also used to do with the Runekeeper. And maybe the champion would get some extra huge damage boost or some other ability with active thing, right? I think you guys should do that, all right? That's a suggestion from me knowing how many people in the community have talked to me saying they loved that, and it was really cool. And this is both high-end raiders and the normies, right? People just having fun playing the game. So I definitely think you should keep that. And I say that with all due kindness, right, to the normies, right? I'm a lot of times a normie when I'm playing with just the low-level stuff, right? But lately, we've been trying to get into more raiding in the past expansion, and, you know, I had a lot of fun tanking on tier 3 depths, and that's where we're learning. Unfortunately, we would have probably got higher tier if it just hadn't, you know, the new expansion came out. We kind of ran out of time for endgame. Because we started, like, 6 months before the new expansion came out, doing the slow tier progression with our team. Alright, so now let's talk about Guardians. I went on a little bit of a tangent there. I apologize. Thank you for still being here, my friends. I hope that you are enjoying it. If you do enjoy this video, if you share it with others, like, subscribe, mean a lot. I appreciate the support. You can hear the dwarves yelling in the background in LOTRO. Alright, let's talk about it. Guardian Stomp now earns at level 12 instead of Challenge. Okay, cool. Little bit of buff. Why is that? Okay, Challenge is now granted by a specialization in the Defender of the tree. Now let's explain something here. All right, Challenge. What is Challenge for those who might not really? Challenge is our main big AoE taunt. Okay, so what that tells me is unless it's at the top of the tree, you're not gonna be able to have Challenge while you're in Redline. All right, That's my guess, which kind of makes sense, because why would you ever want to mass challenge all the targets when you're a DPS? Probably not want to do that. Unless it's like, I mean, I kind of like it being there because it's a chance of you could like maybe save the day if your tank dies for a second and you challenge everything and you run them around with your charge just for a second while they revive from in combat, and then they can get the aggro back so your whole team doesn't just die. That's why I like that there, but it's not necessary, so I get it. Fray the Edge cooldown is now reduced to 15 seconds when Specialized Defender free. That's cool. So Fray the Edge is our single target, and it's a cooldown of... Wait a second. The cooldown is 10 seconds. Hold on. Fray the Edge cooldown is now reduced to 15 seconds when Specialized Defender of the free. But it's 10. Is it going to be a longer cooldown? Is that what they're saying? Okay. We're going to have to come back to that. Because I'm not sure why that... This might be a typo. Maybe they mean 5 seconds. For the Edge cooldown is now reduced to 5 seconds? Because this would be 10 and then 5? Maybe that's a typo. We'll move on. In Defender of the Free. That would make sense if you're... So maybe 15 second 10 second cooldown regularly, 5 seconds in Defender of the Free. I could be wrong on that. But again, this is all brand new. They haven't even implemented this in testing yet, okay? The deorientation trait has been removed. This is kind of a bummer. I thought it was kind of a cool little trait. But that is right... Let's see here. This one? Yeah. Deorientation. What deorientation does is 5% chance for your shield skills to reduce your target's critical defense rating by 5%. And then it's a 25% chance at full. I am assuming they're doing this to take away those points so you can use the points in another way in the blue tree, because they're going to add something else maybe in its place, or so you can use more in yellow. I don't really know why you just take away more options from the Guardian without giving more details. This is why I really think they should add notes or some link to say, hey, go to our talks here, so we can know a little more details on that, because that's just kind of like, okay. I'm not like crushed about that change, but also like, why just take it away? Smashing Strike, formerly Smashing Stab, is now general skill earned at level 34. Okay, so they're actually changing some stuff. But what is that ability? So we're going to go quickly into that. I don't have it in normal redline, all right? But let's keep talking about it a little bit more. The Break Ranks effect is now applied by Smashing Strikes rather than Shield Taunt. This could be cool. I kind of like this. So Shield Taunt is one of our large aggro taunts, and it's a little frustrating when I have to hold it because I don't want to cash out my bolster stacks to do that. So having it on a different skill is very it's very nice for gameplay wise. So props to them. I think that's a good change. Okay, so if I go into here real quick, so normally Shield Taunt, when I use it, has a larger radius, 10 meters, and hits 10 targets, and it just pulls a bunch of aggro, right? It's a threat gatherer. But if you have your thing on that causes Break Ranks, which is right here, it says your Shield Taunt will cash it out and remove all your stacks of bolster and give everybody a 30% damage boost in the group. Now, I hope they don't do this in the side. This right now, Break Ranks hits the entire raid, okay? I love that. It should stay that way. If you change it to not, don't do that. That would be really hurt the Guardian. As, you know, that'd be really rough on the group, because that's something really cool the Guardian can give as a tank. They can break away their defenses slightly and give everyone a boost for 15 seconds. It's really cool. It's something they can do on top of like Oathies or something. It's something that I think is very needed with the Guardian. They don't say they're changing that it can hit the whole raid, so I appreciate that. So that's good. But they say the Break Ranks Smashing Strike. Let's go back to Smashing Strike. Smashing Strike is this ability, which is Smashing Stab. They're going to switch it to Smashing Strike. After using a shield, swipe, or retaliation, you can then, abilities both, they both do different things. One will stun, shield swipe, then stun. If you do retaliation, it'll do a bleed. But if you have both, you open a fellowship maneuver. That is really cool. I love that about the Blue Guard. I hope they keep all of that. Let's keep reading a little bit more. Okay. So Smashing Strike bonus effects are now mutually exclusive. Okay. And Smashing Strike must be used directly after either Shield Swipe or Retaliation in order to give those effects. Got it. Okay, so that's good to know. They're mutually exclusive. So that means that if we look at it again, so you'd have to use Shield Swipe and then get a stun, and then Retaliation, and then get a bleed. Now, hold on. If they're mutually exclusive, how do you do the Fellowship Maneuver? They don't say anything about removing the Fellowship Maneuver. And that would be very bad. that would be like really, really bad if they remove the Fellowship Maneuver, because they already took it away originally from To the King as a chance in red line. So, and then they gave the Guardian it in blue line, which was really cool. It's super cool. Absolutely should be left on the Guardian. If they remove that, it would be like beyond bad. That would be for no reason. That would be no reason to remove that. So hopefully they don't do that. Smashing Strike can now be used. Again, this is the thing. A lot of times recently, and I have to say this, and then this is total politeness, right, to everybody, but a lot of times when I'm reviewing these things, I notice that things will be said, and then something will slightly be changed other than what was in the notes. And that's okay to an extent for little things, but sometimes it's big things. Like, if they don't mention that they're removing the fact that you can get rid of Fellowship Maneuver in this, and then they just do it, that would be like, that would be huge, right? That's a game-changing thing for the entire raid, not just the Guardian. Now, I don't see any world. They are trying to balance all classes to work kind of similarly in certain ways, but also have specialties still themselves. But that, like, there's no like crutch on. That's why they like changed Call to Greatness for the Minstrel, and they changed like the Shout Taunt for the Champion to not reduce damage, because people were always bringing those classes because they had to. They felt because of it's such a strong ability. So they rebalanced them so that, you know, you can bring any classes to mix into a group as long as you have all the right roles and good, you're set. I love that idea. I totally agree with the devs on that. Now, do I miss Call to Greatness? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like that a lot. But I understand why they did it. If they did the Guardian, they removed the Guardian's Fellowship Maneuver. That I would not understand why. It would make zero sense. Because it's really cool. Because really the only people that can open Fellowship Maneuvers when you need it are like a Burglar. The Guardian can. And a Burglar in yellow, right? I think they do in red too, actually. They have a thing. And then, of course, the blue or yellow Lore Master can with their pet. And the Hunter can in yellow. And I believe there's one other person in yellow that can do it as well. I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head. So yeah, anyway, we're getting too stuck on this, but I would assume they're not doing that. Smashing Strike now can be used with a two-handed weapon, meaning in two-hander. Now this could be cool. So if they are leaving the Fellowship Maneuver opening ability on it, which they should, maybe it won't work in red, but if I could open a Fellowship Maneuver in red again on command, that would be really, really, really cool. It would definitely make the Red Guardian even more wanted in group settings. So if you have a tank that can't open a Fellowship Maneuver, and maybe you don't have a yellow line with you in something, but you do have a Red Guard there, he can open a Fellowship Maneuver, right? That would be really, really cool. Now, they are trying more and more to make it where red classes don't have a whole lot of buffs. So they removed a lot of the Guardians, like damage buffs on the target and stuff they did for other people, and like the AoE damage buff. So they're trying to keep that to only be supports and tanks and healers that give buffs like that. I see that goal. So I can understand if the Stabby didn't do a Fellowship Maneuver in red, but it should still do it in blue. Absolutely. There's no reason to change that. Shield Spikes trades, and again, I'm someone that's like, I have a lot of experience on guards, tanking and DPSing, right? That's my thing. I've been doing this for years in this game. I love this stuff. All right, I really keep a track of this stuff. Shield Spikes traits has been decoupled from consuming spikes. This is cool. And now also benefits shield skills, regardless of spikes consumed. This is a cool quality of life update. Basically, you can put that on there and still get a chance to crit more with the shields without using shield spikes if you ran out or don't have any. But you can still use them on top of it. Cool. I like that. Great little addition. Protection by the sword no longer grants an auto crit user. Okay, remember what I talked about a few minutes ago? About 10 minutes ago? Remember what I talked about they just gave us? As a thing? Okay. They literally just gave us this. For protection by the sword. It's still out at the time of the video. They just gave this. We haven't even had time to test it yet. And we're already getting in the new notes that they're going to remove it. Okay, if they're going to remove it, you got to do one thing, guys, the devs. You have to put the auto crit back on charge. You can't just not put it back, because they just removed the auto crit from charge, right? To give it to this, which was a little bit more unreliable, right? Because you can't guarantee it yourself. You have to be in an instance or a raid, all this stuff. But you can't then remove the auto crit off this and not put it back on charge or another ability where you can guaranteed choose when you get an automatic crit, all right? That's like, that's huge. That's huge, that's huge, that's huge. You can't do that. That would be a no-no, and I will make it very vocal about it. Voice of the Rings will be very loud. So, protection by the sword no longer gives auto crit. That is, wow, okay, all right. I mean, here's the thing. I did find it very clunky, as in I haven't really tested it yet, but to have to get a crit randomly all the time doesn't really you're not able to use it well, which is why I liked it on the charge, because it was a guaranteed I could focus in my rotation where I get my auto crit. So they should just put the auto crit back into a use skill like charge, and then get it off this. I think that would be fine. But they must put the auto crit back somewhere else. And I know that sounds very demanding, but if they don't, then it's just going to hurt the Guardian, not only the fun playstyle, but the DPS in general and everything. And the Guards need as much DPS as they can get, let's be honest. The reworks they just did were okay. I saw like a 10-15% increase maybe on a good day, but it wasn't even that high when I was doing testing. So, and if they're getting rid of the auto crit, which is the thing I was thinking, oh, well, maybe that'll make the difference. And then they'll be closer to where DPS should be. You know, maybe even if they're not, they don't have to be a champion level DPS. But if they're right underneath, that's fine. That's right. That's fine. They're still like reasonably, but right now they're like, even with the updates, they're still like really low below other DPS classes, and they shouldn't be. That's not what they're trying to generalize all the classes so you can just bring people in whatever class they have and mix and mess classes with roles, which is cool. That's how it should be. So I like that the devs are doing that. Shield Smash no longer stuns foes. Shield Smash no longer stuns foes. Okay, that is good and a bad thing. All right. Shield Smash is this. Shield Smash is a large AoE that stuns everyone for 3 seconds, does interruptions, and of course can do the inflict thing, which they're removing. So the good news about this, all right, here's why I think they're doing this for rating, is that the stun causes units to get an immunity buff from being stunned, or again, for, I think it's 10 seconds, right? But this will still do the interrupt, I'm assuming. I'm sure it will. They didn't say. So that'll still do the interrupt. So you can still mass interrupt everything over and over, but you can't stun. I don't like that. What I think they should do is they should put 1 point somewhere in the tree where you can either put it in to have a stun on it or not have a stun on it. 1 point in the blue tree. That's what I recommend you guys do. Because then it'll, for us people who are raiding and you know you don't want to do a mass stun, but you want to use your shield smash, then you could take it out. If you want the stun, you can have it in. But that is something that's a little frustrating, because in general, because the stun is like, it's fun and it's good and it's strong, but at the same time it can really hurt you in some raid aspects. So I understand that update, but I get it. I think I know what they're doing. I understand to an extent. It's just a little bit of a bummer to lose any of your cool stuns, right? Everyone likes a good big stun. I think you put a point in the tree separately, trait tree, where you can choose to have the stun or not have the stun. That's what I would do. To the King can no longer knock down foes. Lame. Very lame. I can't, there's nothing else I can say, but that's lame. Let's see. Let's talk about this for a second. Why would they do this? So To the King is apply 2 targets on critical and devastating hits, a knockdown. Why it feels bad to me is that they've already taken away the ability of it to do a stun knockdown or a fellowship maneuver sometimes. In the past, they took away the fellowship maneuver. Now they're going to take away the knockdown, which was fun to me. I loved that about To the King. So I feel like their Guardians had some very overly charged skills. No joke implied that charge was one of them. It had many things on it. To the King has a lot of different things that happen on it. I understand that they're probably trying to break things down, but that's one that's like, It was cool because it was a knockdown, so if you landed a stun with your automatic stun knockdown virtuous charge, you could then use to the king, and if you got lucky with that crit, it would actually do a knockdown, which is another stun, and it would chain on top of the stun. It's something you could do, and not being able to do that anymore is kind of depressing, because that was really fun. I love that as a Red Guardian. I think that was a fun mechanic when you're solo and stuff. So I don't like that. I don't like that. Let's just be... you know me, I voiced my opinion here, Voice of the Rings. I'm pretty nice. I really try to look at it through the eyes of what the devs are thinking. But also, I'm still a player, and I'm still trying to be a voice for the community of players and Guardian players, and I think that's kind of lame. Let's just... so, maybe don't do that one. That's my opinion. I think you should leave it, the knockdown. Insult to Injury is now Wary Warrior, goodness, which causes the Guardian's ward buff to increase your melee damage. Okay, so this is interesting. This is interesting. This is a buff. So this is kind of cool. So again, they're trying to buff their damage up. So if we go to, let me see, where do I have it? Which one is it? Insult to Injury, which is, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I know that's an ability. I know where that is. Insult to Injury. Is that over here? Bleed them dry, protection, vigorous charge, righteous, heavy blows, prey on the weak. Give me a second. Aha! Up here at the top, insult to injury. I knew it was really close, and I was just looking for it. Your damage attacks have a chance to renew all debuffs on your targets. Okay, cool. And it gives... this has kind of been useless, honestly. Like, I rarely use this in... well, I kind of use it in tank, but I don't use it in DPS. But I just don't use it very much. So, it is now going to give the Guardian's Ward buff to increase your melee damage. Okay, so Guardian's Ward, so we all know what that is our ability here. So, what's going to happen is if you put points into this, it'll give your Guardian's Ward, when you proc it to do all those buffs, it's going to give you a melee damage buff. That's cool. That's just a flat old damage buff. So that's huge. Big thumbs up. Love that, devs. Everyone loves that. Everybody loves buffs more than nerfs. And I understand. You have to nerf things sometimes, okay? I'm not unrealistic. I'm a very down-to-earth person on that. I get it, okay? The Guardian's ward buff durations from 10 seconds to 30. That's amazing. That's going to be wonderful both in tanking and in DPS. That's a huge... these are both wonderful buffs. These are fantastic. Their quality of life fixes. They're things that the guard really needs. That's awesome. Demoralizing Anthem no longer reduces the active cooldown of Righteous Fury. Okay, so Demoralizing Anthem is this one, and right now it reduces the block and parry responses and Righteous Fury cooldown. Why are they taking away from Righteous Fury? Not sure. That's kind of a bummer. That's a nerf. So I think they're trying to get a balance on the damage, though. I get it. So they're buffing this. They're giving a warding buff. They're making this not come up quite as fast. Things like that. So I kind of get it. So this will still give war taunt targets, I'm assuming, a block and parry response cooldown, which is great. Which again, that was a newer thing with the Righteous Fury. So they just did that. So now they're just taking it away. They just gave it to us. Let's see. The max chance to gain Blind Rage has been reduced from 100% to 25%. So the reason they're doing this is because they're giving us a damage buff, which hopefully is more than the Blind Rage gives, okay? So Blind Rage normally gives us a flat 10% melee damage with negative, with a faster attack speed, all right? And you can make it 100% with this. Hopefully what they'll do is Blind Rage will get a buff in damage or whatever, or the buff they're going to give to Guardian's Ward will be a lot. It'll be more than 10%. But is my hope, since they're reducing some of these. I don't like that. Again, you're stripping stuff off to the King. Stop it. I love To the King. It's one of my favorite abilities on the Red Guardian. So it's a really strong ability, and you still need to weave into the King all the time into your rotation. You'll still have to. So maybe they're thinking if it's a 25% chance that if you do To the King, it lasts for 15 seconds. If you can do it 3 or 4 times, that you might be able to have it up most of the time anyway. Maybe that's their thought pattern. I think if I were them, if they want to balance it, I would make this 50% of the time, not 25. That's what I would do, to make that a little less rough. Blind Range now increases your incoming damage by 5% while active. So basically, you take more damage on yourself. So that's also a nerf on it. And that's okay. It's called Blind Rage. I think that's fair, right? For balancing. And you're a DPS, so that's okay. It seems like kind of an irrelevant hurt on the Guardian. I don't really see why you do that, because realistically the Guardian should not be getting hit by stuff anyway. But hey, you know what? Hey, if they make Blind Rage 25% chance to stack, and it can stack more than once, so if you get lucky and you get it twice in a row, you can have 2 of them going at once and have 10% more damage on you, I'd be okay with that, right? That would be kind of cool. Now again, that's a little bit of randomness going on there, which I don't really like as much randomness. It's kind of like back to the issue with the protection by the sword giving the crit instead of charge. It's just too random. It's hard to judge for your rotations. And some randomness is okay in things, absolutely. But you have to have a way of judging a baseline damage for any DPS class. That's just how it works, right? The new redline trait, Reckless Attack, grants skill Reckless Attack, which requires and consumes Blind Rage. Oh, so it consumes Blind Rage. Interesting. Ranks 2 to 5 increase skill damage by 5% each. Rank 5 causes critical hits with Reckless Attack to grant a parry response. Okay, so this is cool. So we're going to have a new thing in the tree that we'll be able to choose, and I'm assuming that new thing is going to probably replace new trait Reckless Attack. I bet you it's going to replace Blind Rage trait. So it'll probably be a flat 25%, and I bet you this will be Reckless Attack. They don't say that in the notes, which I think they should, but that's my guess. All right? That's my guess. We'll see if I'm right. We'll come back to this video. I might be wrong. Who knows? But that's really cool. So Reckless Attack, which grants skill Reckless Attack, which requires and consumes Blind Rage. So once you have Blind Rage up, you use Reckless Attack, which is going to be an actual attack, grants skill at Reckless Attack. That's cool. So we're going to get a new skill. That's kind of fun. That consumes Blind Rage. Ranks 2 to 5, increase skill damage by 5% each. That's huge. So we got a damage buff from Guardian's Horde all the time. And then we also have this. That's a lot of flat just percent damage. Now I like that because the guards need the damage boosts, and it's a little bit more less random, right, than the thing they were asking with the parry crits. Rank 5 causes critical hits with Reckless Attack to grant parry responses. That's cool. So if you put all the traits point, that's awesome, because if you land a crit, it opens your parry responses again. That will help the parry tree. Because right now, you get a crit with Brutal Assault, it'll open a parry. If you use Force Open, it'll open a parry. And they went back to the old system, as you know, with the rework just a few days ago, where you have to do one of these two to do one of these, to do one of these. And I believe this Brutal Assault also can sometimes just open, one of the, I think it just open Overwhelm too. Brutal Assault can if it gets a crit. Any skills that are, part of the parry response. So they can do any of these except for To the King. So these 4. But this one just opens these 2. Now, I will say I kind of liked it better when I could just use these at will, the previous thing. But I kind of do like going back to the old Guardian system, because the parry rotation was kind of like a staple of the Red Guard in the past. Kind of like our block chain is. And it's kind of like the special to the Guardian class. That's how it works. There's like these little parry and block response chains. So I'm okay with that. I think that's good. I agree with that. By the way, whether I agree or disagree with the devs is irrelevant, right? Obviously, I'm just giving my 2 cents here. Okay. The devs are in charge, right? I respect what they want to do. I can see that their goal is to try to buff the Red Guardian. And they're trying to balance things. But at the same time, there are fun aspects that I want to point out that you probably shouldn't remove. Okay. Because, like the knockdown from To the King. Don't remove the Fellowship Maneuver, which it doesn't say they're removing the Fellowship Maneuver from the stabbing thing, but please don't do that. That would be bad. The fact that it says they're exclusive makes me worried, because you have to do both to do the Fellowship Maneuver. So is this just quietly removing the Fellowship Maneuver without saying anything so people won't be mad? I don't know. Please don't do that. Do not remove the Fellowship Maneuver effect. That is the coolest thing you've given the guards in years. So we like that. Stagger now removes. Also, it makes sense to have a tank be able to do that. Now, would it make sense to be able to let you do the Red Guard do that in Redline too? Yes, because we used to always be able to do that with To the King with a chance. So it would be a really cool thing if the Red Guard had that ability to add for a raid or an instance for people. Stagger now removes, especially if you're getting rid of the knockdown to the king. At least let him keep the fellowship maneuver in red line and in blue line. At least in blue line. If you don't want to do in red, I understand. Stagger now removes corruptions rather than sting. Oh, interesting. Thrill of danger no longer costs power to execute. Oh, that is really weird. Okay. Huh. Stagger has a 5-second cooldown. Sting has a 2.5-second cooldown. Why would they remove... What? Okay, so I think the idea is... No, that isn't... No. So I think the idea would be that if you're... Are you going to be able to use Stagger in blue line? Wait, can we already use Stagger in blue line? Hold on. Yes, yeah, you can. What am I saying? Yeah. That's weird. That's going to be our corruption removal now, huh? So is Sting going to be completely irrelevant? I mean, there's a chance for it to cause a block response and parry response. So that's a little bit of a nerf. Why I say this is because Sting has a 2.5-second cooldown, where Stagger has a 5-second cooldown. So it means instead of being able to remove a corruption once every 2.5 seconds, only once every 5 seconds. So we can remove 2 in the same time before. It's a little bit of a nerf. Now, will our corruption removal still probably be the best, one of the best in the game? Yeah, 5-second cooldown is like nothing. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really like that. Thrill of danger no longer costs power to execute. Okay, that's kind of cool. Thrill of danger is this one. It only costs 135 power. That's like okay. It doesn't really matter. Guardians don't really run out of power anyway, unless this rework is going to cause these skills to cost more power, which they didn't say that, but we'll find out. Yeah, I don't really like this one. I think Sting has always been the corruption removal in red and blue for guards for 18 years. I think that probably should just stay the same. I don't really see any point to do that. I guess, again, the rotation, if you don't want to use Sting. But you should be using Sting in your rotation with DPS, because Sting is an animation cancellation, and you can get it in there without it slowing down any damage of any other skills in the parry sponsor system. So that doesn't really make sense to... You're going to be using that anyway. I'll still be using it. It's still an extra little stab of, 15,000 whatever damage, and you can do it instantaneously and reset animations of other skills. So, charge cooldown reduced from 60 seconds to 40 seconds. Okay, so there's a buff to charge. But charge tracery reduced from 11 seconds to 3.3. I don't know what this weird thing is with removing charges, but I'm going to vent for a minute. So let me just vent for a second. They just did that to the champions, which I felt was kind of weird. But the Guardians charge right now, the duration is 15 seconds if you're in regular. But if you're in red line and you have the tracery, you can get it a little bit. Let's see. So the duration is 15 seconds right now. Let me go ahead and go over to my legendary item here. Which one has the... So they're talking about this. It's not that one. Other legendary. Right here. Charge duration, 5 seconds. Wait, hold on. Let's read this again. Charge tracery effects reduced from 11 seconds to 3.3. Yes. So this normally is 11. Hold on. I'm trying to... Oh, is it talking about... Oh, I hope it's not talking about the speed. Oh, I think it's talking about the speed. No. Seconds. Wouldn't be speed. So the duration. 5... What? It doesn't go up that high anyway. What are they talking about? Charge tracery effect reduced. The charge tracery. This is the charge tracery. I think they're talking about run speed. I don't know why they put an S, but I think they're talking about the speed. I don't think it's seconds. I think that's a typo, again, because the charge duration only goes up to an extra 6. So that means they'd be cutting in half. But it seems like they're going to remove the run speed. Okay, so this is something I gotta explain this. This has already been talked to me by so many Guardian mains that we're so frustrated about. We really liked being able to run with the 70% movement speed, and that's something you guys gave us originally with the rework 4 years ago when they did the basic rework with the tree. Well, actually, a little farther than that. It was the skill rework on the tree. And we really, really, really were disappointed that with the virtuous charge trait, this gives no benefit now. There's no benefit. I know it says it changes your charge to virtual charge. No, there's no benefit from this. So we're getting nothing out of this thing, out of our little side tree there in the Keen Blade. Before it gave us some movements, some duration and movement speed. So it would give you 10% extra movement speed and it gave you extra seconds. So my charge before was 70% and it would last for 26.5 seconds with the legendary tracery and this buff on the tree. Now it's down to 15-second duration and 60% movement speed. And also, the knockdown is still there, but we don't have the auto crit anymore, and all of that has been removed. So now we're breaking down, we're nerfing skills to balance. I understand they're trying to buff other things, but you try not to buff the things that are the fun parts of the class. This is the fun part of the class. I've always loved to be able to go fast, and now what I'm basically hearing is that I believe this is movement speed. Our movement speed is going to be down to, with the charge, 53.3% movement speed. Now, maybe it's a duration thing. Maybe it's the seconds, and they're going to reduce how many seconds it can be up still. 15 seconds is a pretty small amount of time already. The poor champions, it's even less. But their charge gives them other stuff during it, too. And that's kind of been Guardian's special thing this whole time. So I don't really understand the random nerfs. I understand balancing where, like, they're taking away some damage here because they're adding damage here and they don't want to overload damage. I get that. But things like that, like a duration on the charge, or like the knockdown to the king, those are like the fun things for the Red Guard. And that's why I'm making this video right now. I really want people to know my thoughts on this because I main the Red Guard. So, and none of this is in stone yet. I understand that. But those are things that, like, those are not fun. I'm glad you're reducing the cooldown. I guess that kind of makes it a little bit better. But again, the fun part about the charge is I don't mind if the charge is a minute cooldown. Leave it the way it is. I like the duration on how long I can run with the charge. That's the fun part, right? That's the good part. Now, if this is an issue with PvP, monster play, and it's too strong in monster play, and people are complaining about it in monster play or something, then make it where the skill changes when you get in the monster play area. Don't do it on the normal raiding areas and open landscape for the guard, right? We know that can be done. We do that with other things, with stats and everything we get in the PvP zone. I know they've done that with other abilities in the past, but that's what you do. It changes automatically when you go into monster play. I don't think that's why they're doing this, though. I'm not quite sure why they're reduced. I don't know why they're doing that. That's a massive reduce too. If you're going to really reduce it by make it 8 seconds instead of 11. Why would you cut it in 4s? But anyway, I'm going on a rant. Moving on. We have increased the range of the defense protection by the sword to 60 meters. Good. That's how it should have been when they redid it. That was rough. It was 20. The parry response effect will only trigger when the protected target is within 20 meters of the Guardian. That's fair. That's fair. That's a good balance. Just it falling off over and over when people walk away is really frustrating. So basically, you still need to be near your protected target to get the response. I like that. That's totally fair. Balance. That's a good balance. I like that. Well, there we go. We've pretty much covered this pretty thoroughly. Is there more? So there's some things I truly love about this, that they're clearly trying to make the Guardian a more substantial, like, viable DPS class. And there's some things I despise about a few of these things. I can't use another word. That's the word that comes to mind. Okay, I know this sounds mean, but there's just things that and there's a few things I'm worried about in here. So again, with a really, really fast recap, Stomp, okay, fine. Challenge is now only in blue line. That's fine. That makes total sense. Fray the Edge cooldown is reduced. Defender free makes sense. Good, fine. Removing this, I don't really care. It's kind of like a random nerf that doesn't seem to be needed to the Blue Guardian, but okay, doesn't really matter. Maybe we can use the points in another tree. I'm fine with that. That makes sense. Smashing Strike, formerly Smashing Stab, is now gained earlier. That's fine. The break ranks effect now applied by Smashing Strike instead of Shield Taunt. That's fantastic. Hopefully, how it works with the Fellowship, that's fine. That's fine. Now hold on. Though, Smashing Strike also is how you open the Fellowship Maneuver. Are they if they remove the Fellowship Maneuver from Blue Line Guardians, I will be grumpy. And that's just a bad change. I'm sorry. So no one is going to change my mind otherwise, because I have so much experience in this that it's like, it's not like it's not like, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong if I didn't have this information. No, unless they're moving the Fellowship Maneuver opening ability somewhere else in the tree, if they're going to remove it entirely without even telling us here in the notes, that makes me a little grumpy. But I highly doubt they'll do that to us because that's a really good mechanic, so I shouldn't get mad at something I don't know that's going to happen. So I'm not mad. No one's mad. But let's hope that's not how that works. The break rank effect now applies Smashing Strike instead of shield break ranks. That's great. I think that's fine to not have. I think it's a good update. I think having it on Shield Taunt means you can't use Shield Taunt with your 5 bolster stacks, and that's a little annoying. So having it another ability to do break ranks is awesome. I hope break ranks still hits the entire raid, not just like the 6 people in your group, because that would be pointless because the tank is always in the other group. He's not with the DBS, so that would just be total frustration if they did that. So that's good. Smashing Strike bonus effects are now mutually exclusive. This is the one that worries me. Hopefully what they'll do, what I would do if I were them, is that if you have Smashing Strike out, all right, if you have it out, make the one that is after the shield swipe damage and stun. Instead of damage, it would be damage and open a Fellowship Maneuver instead of stun. And then retaliation would be the bleed. Right? I think that's what you do. And then normally when you use it, it'll cash out the stacks. All right? That's what I would do. Because then you have a perfect combo. Because most of the time, the Guardian wants... Oh! I just realized something. Maybe this is what the devs are doing. The Guardian usually wants to use... Usually when you do a Fellowship Maneuver, you open up something like on Depths, and then you want to immediately use Shield Taunt to break ranks and give everyone damage buff. So if that's the key to what they're doing here, that you'll open a Fellowship Maneuver, immediately cash out all your defenses to give everyone a damage boost, that's genius. If that's what the devs are doing here, that is absolutely genius. Awesome job, devs. If that's what you're doing, that makes total sense. That actually is what... I wish you'd say that here, that was the effect you're doing, if that's what you're really doing. Because that would be awesome. That would be really cool, devs. It would be an awesome effect. Because then you open Fellowship Maneuver, boom, everyone's a damage buff, everyone goes crazy on the target, right? Yeah. And including, it'll also increase the Fellowship Maneuver's damage if people want to use it, right? Usually, people don't use it as much. It just doesn't do enough damage. Smashing Strike bonus effects are now mutually exclusive. Smashing Strike be directly, so that's good. Let's finish with our little copy. Smashing Strike can now be used with a 2-handed weapon, hopefully in red line. That would be really cool if you could do the extra bleed with it. Have an extra bleed to cash out. If it's separate, that would be really cool. I would love that. Even if it can't open Fellowship Members in red line, even though it totally should, because the Return of the King used to be able to do that. That would be really cool. Shield Spikes trait, that is awesome. I love that update. Shield Smash no longer stuns foes. I don't like that. That's bad. I recommend that you put it onto a trait on blue so you can choose whether you want it to stun or not. That's what I would do. That would be a much more... People would like that up. That would be much nicer. To the King has no longer a knockdown foe. I hate that. I hate that so much. I can't even tell you how much I hate that. You guys are like, Zollin, you've already said it a lot. That's no good. No good. I feel bad about this too for the... and the devs need to explain why they're doing this. Is this because it's causing massive lag? Are these knockdowns and stuns, mass stuns, causing lag? Is that why they're worried about this? They should just say it, if that's the reason. If it's not, there's no good reason to do this. That's like the only good reason in my mind that I can think to do that. The Smash one, I explained, it is annoying if it causes the stun immunity. So if you don't want it to, so put it in the trait tree as 1 point. So you can switch it off and on. Same thing to the King. If you don't want it to have a chance to cause the stun, then put it 1 point in the trait tree to be able to choose whether you have it off or on. That's what I would recommend. Again, so insult to injury, warriors buff melee. I think that's really cool. I think it's cool that they extended the Guardian's Ward. I think it's a fantastic update and buff. Demoralize Anthem no longer. I understand this debuff, like this nerf debuff. I totally get it. I think that's justified with what they're doing here. With the max chance to gain blind range has been reduced. I think that's too much. I think it should be probably 50%. I understand it's a balancing thing, but that seems too much to me. Blind range now increases your incoming damage. I understand that. Again, that's kind of like a nerf to the Guardian, but I understand if they're buffing. If we really... I don't care about any of these nerfs, like I take more damage, if I can do the similar damage to another DVS class with the right gear. If I can do that, I'm okay if I take more damage with the nerf. I'm fine with that, because Guardian's already a really, really tanky DPS, because they're naturally just really tanky. So that would be fine. I'd be okay with that. New red line trait Reckless. This is really cool. This looks really awesome. Stagger now removes corruption instead of sting. I don't like that. I think that's I don't like that at all. Thrill danger no longer costs power. Cool. Okay, again, kind of irrelevant. Charge cooldown reduced. Okay, I like it. It's reduced. I hate this. The efficiency reduced. I think that you've already hurt the Guardian by making it where we can only go 60% instead of 70, and reduced it from 26.6 seconds to 15 second duration. Reducing either of those more is just kind of dumb at this point. I don't like it at all. It makes me very upset. The reason we get upset, by the way, as players, some people might laugh when they're watching this video. The reason we get upset is we play these characters all the time, right? Every day. All of us. Like, that's what we do. We have so much fun. So to have something that you've had for 18 years, or maybe not quite much for Charge, it was a little less. It was like 7 years, okay, for the Charge. And then to just get it gutted to like 20% of what it was, it just feels really bad. Because then you have all this muscle memory to use it, and you're like, wait a second, why is it? Oh, yeah, I forgot I was nerfed. And you think that for the next year, right? So, yeah. This is awesome. The range of the 60 meters, but also still, that's great. It only works within 20. Love that. That's great. All right, so there we go. We fully reviewed that. There's also a couple quest things and adventure quests, some other stuff. Far-ranging stables in the 21st Hall has been labeled as such. They fixed some details, updates, skirmishes. Now, to finish up this video, I want to talk about how I think it's really, really important that the devs leave a link to some note or conversations they're having, or where people can talk with them. Now, granted, in the forums, you can do it right down here. But no, I don't think any of the devs really left anything. Now, I gotta say, this person here, I already read it, totally insane, new member. He wrote this, and I thought it was a dev, and I don't think it is. But he wrote this, and I thought it was, because it's really, really well written, and I would like to read it to you guys real quick. Okay, so props to this person. The recent decision to reintroduce the parry response system for the Red Guardian raises serious concerns from a gameplay and class design perspective. Yes, and this is the thing over and over, and having to reopen it, because the system has phased out years ago due to its inconsistent behavior, limited player agency, and negative impact on combat flow, which I do agree. That's why I think they should put back the ability, all right, if we're in Redline, the ability to just, I don't mind having a parry open response, I agree with him, but we should have Whirling Retaliation and Retaliation back to just opening up and then going straight into these. You can just use them whenever. I think they need to bring that back. Because we can't use Whirling Retaliation, we can't now use the knockdown from Charge on multiple targets, unless we use Sweeping Cut, but no, Retaliation is more fun. I guess that's not a big deal. But, the parry responses, it would be nice. It would really help with that. But reintroducing it now represents a class degradation rather than a meaningful improvement. Yeah, so that's what I also think. I think they should go back to how things were and how the Guardian was before update 46.1. This is going to be 47 in the future, right? I think they really should, and they should introduce some of these benefits and strengths without doing these massive game-changing disappointments, like Smash no longer hits stuns all foes, To the King no longer has a knockdown, your movement speed is going to be even slower on Charge and shorter, or shorter, whichever one that means. I don't know why we talked about why I'm confused on that. Give us some of the buff things, because the Guardian needs a buff, not really like a balancing where you like increase damage here but nerf it here. No, they need a buff like across the board. Guardians are low on the damage pull, okay, when it comes to doing like raiding and instances. So I think that I understand little balances and little tweaks here and there that are little nerfs, but some of these are like drastic, and some of these are like huge buffs, some of these are like huge nerfs, and we can't know for sure until we've actually seen it live, right? You can do stuff on the Bororo to an extent, but really it's what's solid on afterwards is what really kind of matters in the end, right? But let's keep reading what this person said. This change was not requested by the player base, and noticeably negative effect on the overall feel of the specialization. Yeah, that is, I do agree to an extent. The reliance on reactive procs, disruption, rotations consistently, reduced control. He's talking about the crit being on the reaction on the tank instead of being on Charge. And by the way, now they're going to remove it off the reaction tank, so we won't have any guaranteed crits coming from anywhere. They should put it back on Charge, okay? That's what I think. and the results in the clunkier and less engaging play experience. For a specialization already struggling with relevance, which I do agree, even though I really wish it wasn't the case, the direction further exacerbates existing issues instead of addressing them. I do agree that I think that they should go back to what it was. Don't go back to the full old system of the Guardian, and then just give them the buffs, some of these cool buffs you've given in here, without the massive nerfs to certain things. And again, if the issue is the stuns and the massive stun is causing lag, then say that in the notes. Just tell us. Right? I don't think that's the case, though, with the new 64-bit servers. I think it's just they're removing it. More broadly, this change fits into a growing pattern seen across multiple class updates. Recent reworks have repeatedly failed to resolve long-standing problems or improve gameplay satisfaction. Hunters, Yellow Bergs, and non-red lore masters continue to face unresolved design issues. This is true. All the people that play these classes, this is true. Now, I know for a fact, as someone who does think the devs are awesome and they do care about the players, they're just trying to get a lot done with a crew, right? They're trying. Like recently, they buffed the Red Hunter again, which is fantastic. Since they moved the volley off it, so like that was cool. So it still is in a good spot with damage. But like I know that Yellow Bergs feel really like, I know they're generalizing yellow lines across all the classes, but I feel like Yellow Bergs should still be up there, because they've always been like a very strong yellow class, and I feel like a lot of stuff in the Yellow Bergs has been really rough. Like for example, having to do their target thing with increased damage on the target. Now like you have to do it with a response, and it goes off after a little while with a cooldown. They should just make it where you just click on the target and leave it on the target again. Things like that. Just annoying things that just don't make it more fun for them to play, right? I'm not a burglar main, so I wouldn't know all the details on this, but the things I've heard from the players in the community and even people I know who are high tier raiders that may have done tier 5+ stuff have said things to me, so I understand some stuff. And non-red lore masters. Red lore masters are in a fantastic spot, but he's talking about like the yellow and the blue lore master. Now, I think the yellow and blue master are okay. I think they're in a okay spot, but there are some stuff that I feel like they could use some help with. Yellow lore master, I think, is more okay. There's one or two things that I know because I play it. Blue mat lore master, I've had people say things to me, but I don't think it's like, I think some people really like it. I think it has really strong buffs for the team, but I know there's some stuff that, it could probably use a little bit of extra fun, when it comes to play for the player. But again, one thing I always recommend, right, when it comes to, you don't want power creep to happen. You never want power creep to happen. And I know we had a stat crunch 2 years ago, so they're trying to keep that from happening. But the bottom line is, if you do nerfs, you need to explain exactly why you're doing the nerf. Like there needs to be a link with notes. Because really, people are more accepting of a nerf, as I know as a content creator, because people will make comments to me if I don't say things right with my videos, right? But people are more accepting if you explain it slightly. You're like, this is why we're doing this, because we feel like this is happening. Even if it's just a feeling, right? With like our tests and this and that. And then you give us your opinion, and let people be able to voice their thought, right, on that. But another issue that is happening, I think, for specialization struggle with relevance, he's saying here, instead of addressing... Now, I disagree a little bit with this comment here, just so you guys know. I don't think the devs are not addressing certain things. Like, for example, we're getting red guard buffs, finally, right? We've gotten hunter red buffs, finally, over years. We've all been wanting those. Now, I guess you could say that years ago, if they weren't being addressed. But they clearly are trying to address things. They really are. So this person's also obviously a little frustrated. You can tell. That's okay, though. Like, he's just voicing his opinion, right? More broadly, this change fits into a growing pattern seen across multiple classes. Yes and no, which we just read. Wardens are another example of a class remaining at lower end of overall performance and enjoyment. This is true, except I know some Wardens who love their class, who are really good players, but I feel like the Warden could use some love. I don't think it needs like drastic changes, but some changes would be nice to make it more fun. And then he says, despite repeated statements and long-standing experiences, regardless meaningful updates that have yet to materialize. So that they said they're going to do certain things. Here's the thing, all right? The devs are doing their best, right? And they do have a limited team of manpower on what they can do and what they have to focus on and what they have to do. They're slowly been, you can see, if you look over the last 6 months, they've slowly been implementing things, which is really cool, right? But I do think if they are going to do stuff, they really should, like, make a little bit more open and talking about people than maybe just in, like, some basic forum posts like this without any discussion area. Now, granted, I know you're saying, well, Zollin, this is a discussion area right below. Yes, it is. But I think they should do it more in Discord and stuff, too, because the bottom line is more people are going to talk in there. I know that forums are cool and all, but most people don't use this kind of communication as much, the majority. The longtime LOTRO players, I'm sure, do. People like me and other people, but, you know. Feedback provided on Borora forums has consistently highlighted these concerns, yet the final implements often more in the opposite direction. This creates the impression that player feedback is not being effectively incorporated into the design features. Yes and no. I have heard, too, that some players want certain things and other players want other things, right? That happens a lot, right? That's life. People are all... You're not going to be able to please everybody. I get that, okay? So, but, you know, I really think one thing that should be a big thing is as much as you have to balance stuff around, like, the PvP zone and rating, endgame tier rating, you do need to balance the game around fun. Fun. That should be number one. Fun should be number one. The class should be fun to play, and it should, because that's the majority of the players, right? That's going to be the majority. And I would consider myself now someone who I like to play and just have fun. And also I've been doing endgame stuff. So I kind of see both worlds, and I get it. But fun should be the goal, to make the class fun, which is why things like they removed the Brawler's knock-up entirely, so they still punch in the sky, but nobody goes up with them. Now, if that's a lag issue, they need to explain that. But that was just thrown in the previous thing without being told, and it was kind of lame. Like, that is like a cool skill to knock everybody up. It looks so cool. It's one of my favorite skills in the Brawler, and I know all the Brawler mains in my Kinship. You know, that's a fun skill. So things like that, you know, you remove the Runekeeper's ability to do their double tap cast because we kind of updated the server to make sure that couldn't happen with a delay. But then it immediately destroyed their DPS because of that. So does that mean originally it was balanced around that? Was it balanced around that glitch? And now because their DPS is right under like red Lore Masters and red Minis. And that's where they should be. Red Runekeeper. They should all be around the same spot, right? Should be pretty close. And now the Runekeeper like dropped drastically. So does that mean that one thing was actually being balanced around a glitch, and then they weren't buffed after the glitch was repaired, right? So I don't know if that's the case. I'm not making assumptions, and I'm not trying to say certain things that I think I know or don't know. I don't have any idea. But my point was saying that, is that, you know, they need to watch for that. They need to make sure to double check. I think it was good they did for a positive. I love it that they removed the Hunter's volley thing, and then they're like, oh my gosh, everyone's like, the Hunter's damage is back to being horrible again, Redline. Then they buffed all their skills, and now they're in a good spot again. So that was good. That was great to see they did that. I love that. Given the context, it is increasingly difficult to understand the purpose of public testing phases if core concerns raised during testing are not reflected in the final results. Likewise, continued investment in updates and expansions becomes harder to justify when the class I don't know about this. Design's quality appear to stagnate or decline over time. I don't fully agree with that last part of his statement. That's a little bit much. What I do agree with is it is increasingly difficult to understand the purpose of public testing if the core raised concerns are not reflected in the final results. Now, here's another thing that is important about this. Two things. Twofold. One, that sometimes these information get put in here, and then suddenly it gets into the game, and there's another thing, another update on something. You're like, wait a second, that was never posted in any of the forums or update notes. Why is this changed? Right? That should never happen, for one. And for two, if people give you feedback, whether it be, you know, one of my videos or any of the people on the forums that have been doing this for years, or the general audience, community of LOTRO, if a lot of people are like, no, we really like, for example, the Brawler, the knock-up. We love that. Everyone loves that. It's so cool. Then you should leave it in the game, right? Or like, oh, you know, we like our charge. Champions love their charge duration. Guardians love their charge duration. That's so fun. Then you should leave it in the game. If it's a problem with PvP, You need to just adjust it for PvP only, right? Things like that. And again, I don't know how hard some of these things are to do. They just need to explain it to us if it's difficult. Like, hey guys, the reason we don't just adjust it for PvP, and yes, we are balancing slightly for PvP, is because it just is so hard to program, blah, blah, blah. It takes up too much time. So we just have to do this. We're sorry, right? That would be fine. I think 95% of the community would be like, okay, that's justified. There'd be a couple people that complain and whine still. Of course, there's always going to be some. But you get my point. Clarification on the design goals behind these decisions. Yes. This I couldn't agree with more. That's that sentence. As well as more transparent feedback integration process would go a long way towards rebuilding player confidence. This is absolutely true. And as a content creator for the game, I'm a LOTRO. I'm a Lord of the Rings content creator. I do everything Lord of the Rings, but obviously LOTRO is one of my biggest things, and I clearly am passionate about it. And I really want the game to succeed. I want the devs to succeed. I want the players to have fun. These are all things that are in my mind that I really want to have fun. And people understand this in the dev team, right? The clarification things. I know for a fact that Cordovan said in his live stream the other day, and I don't know if I'm going to quote this exactly correctly because it was a few weeks ago, but he said he wants to get more transparent conversations happening in the main official Discord so that people aren't just guessing and wondering how did we come to this decision with this class rework, this thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, the majority of the players didn't want this. Why is this here? And then someone says, oh, well, some people were talking about it over here in this other random location, or, you know, and people are like, what? Like, that's what happened to me. I was confused on some updates, and they were like, oh, everyone knows about it. I'm like, who's everyone? I think 90% of the community doesn't know about this, right? If I don't know about it, that's kind of weird too, because I usually follow all this stuff. And what it came down to is they were having conversations in another Discord somewhere or something about things, or it was basic stuff in the forum notes or in the Barora, and a lot of people just didn't know about it. Just a small group of people, which, again, that person that said everybody knows about it obviously didn't realize that it was just them, that small group of people that knew about it. They didn't mean anything bad by that, though, obviously. So clarification on the goals, make it more open to the community, listen to the playback, feedback of other players. It'd be nice to hear the feedback of casual players that play a class, that what they like and don't like, just in the open world. Not just, hardcore raiders or content creators like me, right? They should really listen to what makes it fun for everyone. And again, you're not going to please everyone. I understand that, right? I am, as a content creator now for a few years here, I understand that you can be the nicest, you can be so nice, you can be so transparent and so everything, and there's still going to be people that disagree with you or are mad at you or blah, 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 this or that. Now, that rarely happens here on my channel. I have a great community. You guys are awesome. But, still, you get random people. It's the internet, right? Same thing with video games. Anyone can join this game. It's free to play, right? It's, everyone's going to be here. But, I do think this last sentence is very, 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 very important. And that's what I've been a suggestion in the main Discord, that when they do these posts like this, there should be a link to, hey, here's our discussions to the Bororo forums or whatever. Now, discussion thread. Oh, actually, there it is right there. Okay, excuse me. There it is, the discussion thread. You can actually start placeholder for bugs. There is no information here from the devs, though. Okay, this is just to start talking about it, basically. Got it. Okay, so this is not what I meant. Never mind. This is not what I thought it was. What I'm saying is I think there needs to be a written thing by the devs somewhere. Let's see if I'm just saying this and there already is. Because that would be available. This can access through the Aurora character copy guide eyes tavern. Would this be all BC servers, locations, races? No, that's something else. No, I don't see anything here. So anyway, my point is, discussion thread, that's great. So you can start talking about this post. But they should have another post link, and it goes to a little thing just from the devs. And they just do a quick little talk about this. They don't need to put in paragraphs upon paragraphs. Just be like, our main goal with the Guardian is this. We know we're moving the charge duration. That's because of this. This. And, and we realized the Red Runekeeper needs some more damage buffs. So we gave them the ability they used to partially have from their gear at 150, right? Blue, boom. Just a couple little statements, right? I'm glad they have these discussions down below. But again, these are after the fact. These are not talking about what their mindset was when they thought all these changes up, right? Because these were all thought up probably in the last 2 weeks, right? Or earlier by the devs and talking to people and kind of redoing it. I'd be curious to know who is doing the updates for the Red Guard. I'd love to give some input, right? All my thoughts on certain things that are frustrating, that are not fun to play, and what are fun to play with. Yeah. So again, maybe they have a spot already in the main official Discord. I'll find that out later. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I just think when they bring these out, or even have a link to the main official Discord. Hey, join the main official Discord. We chat about it here. If you want to give your opinion or thoughts on it, things like that, right? Just give a couple more links. I think with things like that. I think the big one is having a little description about the update you're showing here on the screen, not just a spot to talk about it after the fact, right? How did you come to some of these conclusions, and like why did we suddenly remove, like for example, here's a simple one: protection by the sword no longer grants auto crits to the user. Why? You just added that, right? Like you just added that a week ago. Why are we going to remove it in like a month after this all goes through with the testing? Like, how did you come to the conclusion that this is already bad? Right? You guys see what I'm saying? And why aren't you adding the auto crit back to charge? Because now it's just going to feel bad. Because now it's just going to feel like, well, you removed our auto crit from charge. You gave us this, which was cool. I mean, even though it's kind of unreliable to protect this ability, and then you remove that too. So then it's like you take away something and you give us something. And we're like, okay, well, this isn't as cool as what I had, but all right, at least I have this. And then they take away this too. And it's like, well, what about the other thing you took away? Nope. I'm kind of joking, but you guys know what I'm saying, right? So that would be important to explain why. Just explain it to us why you're doing it. That's all I'm saying. Explain to us why. Even if you take it away, it's your decision. You guys are in charge of the game. You guys are the devs. We understand that, right? We're just here having a wonderful time in a wonderful game, which we do love. But if you just explain those things to us, that's what we really want to know. At least personally, and from all the people I've talked to, my community, Voice of the Rings, and then the larger community of LOTRO as well. Yeah. All right, well, we're done. We're done. Hope you have a great and wonderful day in Middle-earth. Have a good one. Thank you for being here for this LOTRO update. Talk about the Red Guard updates to come. And I'm excited to see they are buffing Red Guard's damage. I think they're lowering some things, but I think it's going to buff even more, which is good. But I feel like they're kind of gutting some of the fun play out of the Guardian. And again, I'll say it one more time. Put charge crit back on charge if you're going to remove it now off the protection by the sword. Put it back on there. Don't remove all its run speed and durations and movement speed and durations. I think that's just frustrating. Leave the knockdown onto the king. If you're going to remove the stun on smash, put it into the tree as something you can remove with 1 point, or have or not have a stun from it. That would be perfect. Maybe go back to the other system with these opening up the pair responses and just being always able to be used. I think that was cleaner feeling and it does feel a little bit of a going back to the original system of the Guardian from like 10 years ago. I'm excited to see they're going to add another skill. I'm glad that Smashing Stab is going to work in Redline 2 now. It would be kind of cool. I hope that Smashing Stab will still open the Fellowship Maneuver. I think it's cool that Smashing Stab will be the way to do break ranks instead of shield swipe. I think that it's a nice quality of life, but if you can't open a Fellowship Maneuver anymore, at least in blue, that would be very, very bad. I would be very disappointed. It would feel like a total, like that one person said in the comments, a total backgrade to the Guardian. It'd be like we're jumping back 10 years instead of going forward with an upgraded, more DPS Guardian that can actually be a real DPS Redline. It would really just hurt it in general to not be able to open Fellowship Maneuvers. Now, I understand they want Yellow Lines to be able to do a lot of things, right? And maybe, if they're doing that, the thought is, well, we will only let yellow classes to open Fellowship Maneuvers. Yeah, but come on. Give the Guardian one special thing. The tank thing, right? With opening Fellowship Maneuver. That has been something that's been so cool. It's been one of my favorite updates to the Guardian, and it just feels so good to be able to do that. If they take that away, I will be very grumpy, and I will be vocally grumpy. I will be very, very loud about it. That was a terrible decision if they did that. They didn't say they were going to do that, though. So I don't want to make assumptions that they're going to do that when they literally did not say it's going to remove the ability to do Fellowship Maneuvers. So it sounds like to me you're still going to be able to do Fellowship Maneuvers, and who knows, maybe they're going to let them do it in Redline. That would be really cool. If they did that, the nerfs on like to the King and Charge and all these other things, as long as we have increased damage, that we can be efficient damage, and we can still open Fellowship Maneuvers in blue at least, but maybe red too, I would be a happy camper. I'd be very happy. I would be totally fine with the other things. That feels like that would be a really good thing. I hold my breath a little bit because I don't want to get my hopes up or get your guys' hopes up watching the video and then find out that's not going to happen. right? And they're removing the fellowship number or something. That would just be like, oh. So anyway, this is my 2 cents to the devs. If they watched an hour and 20 minutes, wow, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And I appreciate all my viewers and all the LOTRO community who watched this whole thing. You guys are the best. Thanks so much. Thanks to my Patreons, Martin, Elraandor, and Reb, and all my Patreons for their support of this channel. I do it full time. And LOTRO is a great game. I highly recommend you play it. It's super fun. It's growing right now, and it's a blast. I am just very passionate about the Red Guardian because we have been needing buffs for a long time, and I'm glad to see they're happening. But I feel like we're getting a lot of, like, we're paying for those buffs with fun things being taken out of our kit, and I really don't want to see that happen to the Guardian. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. And you guys know me, I'm glass half full. I really do think the devs are awesome. I think they really are doing their very darndest best to get you know, fun experiences. I think a lot of their updates have been really, really good. I thought the 150 cap was awesome. I loved the gear that gave abilities. It was really fun. I thought the raids were fun even though they were challenging. I'm hoping the new 160 stuff. So far, the new 3 instances have been super fun. I really liked them. Palace is a little hard, but the other ones I think are really fun. Quite fun. I hope the raid will be a blast too. And very excited. And I'm going to be doing a lot of tests with that. And I want to make the Red Guard a relevant DPS class. So my goal will be to really learn and test it with the updates. And then I'm going to be running with it in some raids. So, of course, my kin are like, Zollin, we want you to tank. I'm like, I know. But we have some other great tanks in our kinship. So they can tank, and I can DPS. So anyway, but that is the goal in the future. I really want to make the Red Guard. I want to test it and see how it works. Because I feel like the Red Guard doesn't have a lot of maybe representation in the community. There's not a lot of people that do Red Guard besides just solo play that like really run it as DPS. I know a few people, and I know they're out there. And if you're in the comments, leave a comment. Hear about how much you like the Red Guard too. But I really think it's a really fun class trait tree. The way LOTRO does classes in general is now basically like Guardian is basically 2 classes. You have the DPS class and the tank class. And I know it's one class, but the trait trees can fundamentally change a character and what their role is. All right. Have a good one, guys. Stay happy, and I'll see you in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. Cheers! Baruch Khazad, Khuzad, I menu. And at your service and your families, as always. Cheers.